What's up, everybody? Welcome to TeslaFix. Today we have a very important topic to cover here about Tesla, because you have to ask yourself, why does Tesla always get bad press? Is it justified that Tesla gets bad press? Is it overblown by TeslaQ or a huge conspiracy by the oil industry? Let's find out in this episode, and let's see who's the guest in that episode.
Welcome to TeslaFix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
So, as you can see, we are in my studio here with a very special guest. That's probably not AI, I would say. Yeah, he's real. So, Brian is actually here at my place to do this great episode here and to talk about, the FUD going around Tesla and why that is, because I think it's important. We hear so much about Tesla every day. Brian, what do you think? What's going on there? I mean, yeah.
So let's start by assuming that people don't know what we're talking about. FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If there's bad news, you can report bad news. But what if there's no bad news and you still want there to be bad news? Well, instead of spreading bad news, you can spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Well, and we saw that a lot. Oh, these are great numbers, but maybe they're too good. Maybe we saw people, and I won't even give his name out because he's such a terrible analyst, and everyone can probably guess, who would say Tesla sold too many cars.
What?
In China, they sold too many cars. Now there won't be any demand because everyone who wants one's got one. Now that's a ludicrous way to spin a very good quarter, but it's doubt. I'm uncertain about the future. I have some fear. Tesla gets an outsized chunk of fear, uncertainty, and doubt compared to any of their competitors, and there are reasons why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also realized that because this is a topic that's pretty interesting to look into, because it's disproportionate with Tesla. That's the main reason. And I mean, of course, I'm a Tesla fanboy. Brian is a total Tesla fanboy. No, actually, we try to really get into the detail here. And I'm a little bit more on the emotional side, so I might spin it a little bit, have emotionality mixed in, but Brian isn't actually. He looks at the numbers, looks at the factory production numbers, for example, just compares. And you have a good balance of figuring out, is it this or that? You also don't hesitate to criticize Tesla when there is critique placed there. I mean, sometimes it's difficult, actually. I interviewed Ross Gerber as a different perspective on my channel. Of course, he has a very strange spin, to say the least, and now he kind of fell apart in that sense. But this was also not perceived very well on my channel as well. But I don't want to preach to the choir, kind of, and I want to get a different perspective. I had him on to kind of have a balanced opinion on Tesla, a balanced view on Tesla, and try to figure out where he was coming from. It was a lot of BS, but still, I wanted to hear him out. So that's important to me. And I think you do it very well to get a balance, because you, for example, also compare it to other EVs, like NIO, for example, also does a great job. But they don't get as much shit as Tesla, for example, or...
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for all that. Well, let's start with the fact that most media is recycled media. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about BYD or NIO or Li or Xiaopeng or any of the Chinese players, media is a lot more controlled in China.
Yeah.
If you write bad stuff about companies that the government likes, it could be a problem. If you write bad stuff about the companies at all, you could lose access.
That's true.
So the first wave of coverage on all the Chinese brands is from Chinese media. Everything you read after that is distilled from Chinese media. Mm-hmm. So what you get is you start with a very pure product and it gets watered down a bit, but it doesn't get completely flipped. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Tesla in the US, there's good money in making negative stories about it. Yeah. And you will see one negative story start, and then you can track its DNA down through the system and see where I've seen stories where they say, well, this one problem is happening. And you say, right, but all of the sources point back to one article. Mm-hmm. And that's an advantage the Chinese brands have, is that the first story is always positive, even if the news isn't necessarily positive.
Yeah.
So that's just that part of it. But with Tesla, what we see is a lot of just real lazy reporting and real negative reporting that doesn't always make sense. Yeah, and I've got examples if you want to see.
Yeah, we're going to go into those soon, but one thing I wanted to add here is that it seems like it's a little bit difficult to, as a viewer or as a reader, go through the details, go into the nitty and gritty and find out where the sources came from exactly. Tesla had also cases where, I don't know, they kind of, swept something under the carpet, quality control issues with the Model S and X, for example, in the beginning especially. Those were, I mean, the Roadster that they even sold some was crazy to me. Afterwards, when you really look into it, that, okay, they were struggling hard to do that, but they stumped a few rich people who bought the cars at least. But now with mass production, it's a different story. You kind of have to, be a little bit more careful. But yeah, it's interesting to see that. But I think we're going to go into the examples now, because then we can see what you mean. So we have this headline: who wants 30,000 used cars? And it's about Hertz, apparently.
Yes.
Based on the picture here. So why did you...
Go ahead and scroll down a bit, because, at the start of the year, Hertz announced it was selling off its fleet of Teslas, backtracking a plan to buy up to 100,000. And this whole article is filled with mistakes and misunderstandings. I can't imagine that they're anything but intentional. And if you scroll down, at least in my browser, your browser's different. On mine, IntelliGencer gets smaller and smaller because the intelligence is fading as you get further into the article. But I managed to work the joke in anyhow. So, they're saying, we haven't seen this before. The high voltage battery pack is damaged and it could have extreme safety concerns. A Tesla technician texted him, but because the hole was exterior damage, it wasn't covered by the warranty. So what happened was this guy goes on the Hertz website, buys a used Hertz, and gets a car that's damaged, and he didn't have it properly inspected to see that it was damaged. That's a problem, right? Well, that's any used car. That's any rental car. That's not unique to Tesla. What's unique is Hertz swapped him out cars. They said, you know what? You're right. Give it back. We'll give you a different one. So the guy was still made whole, which is very unusual for a rental company. But you're buying a used rental car. You know what that car has been through. And if you don't, well, I mean, how? So it's and then of course, Hertz is an early contender for Wall Street's schlemazel of the decade. The big unlucky lemon that just can't seem to get anything right. What is going on here, man? This is pure garbage. I've got the next slide is a better example. They've got this one, which is FSD trial convinced just 2% of users to pay for it. Credit card data shows. Now, I don't know how much you've worked in data analytics, but I've worked in it a bit. I'm always looking for ways to to mine data to find the hidden.
Yeah.
If you asked me to try and piece this together, what is the take rate? I can't think of how they could do it effectively, because what I assume they're doing, the data, I had an opportunity to meet a waste data engineer. He was the guy who figured out iPhone global sales.
Oh, okay.
Because they purchase waste data from Walmart. And they don't know who bought what. They just know what people bought. And what they know people bought was this many iPhones, exactly this many. And then in an earnings call, Apple said, Walmart makes up X very specific percent of our sales. And they go, got it.
Bingo, yeah.
Bingo. We put the pieces together. So if you were to try and look at credit card data, what you would have to look at is somebody who purchased FSD as a subscription and then purchased it again. That doesn't cover the free trials. You won't see the free trials on the credit cards.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, okay, fine. What if they've purchased anything through the Tesla app and then signed up for FSD? Right, but that doesn't count the people who never got the demo or got it much later, people who are still using the demo, because there are people who only got the FSD version 12 demo a week ago. They're not going to show up. It doesn't count people who already own FSD.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a whole lot missing.
Yeah.
So this headline, They had to know. If the author didn't know it was BS, that's not a good author.
Yeah.
And I apologize to whoever wrote this. It might be, I apologize to Julian
Nistran. Sorry.
That sounds like a real name.
Yeah.
But I get it. You're trying to get clicks. Videos like this, articles like this will get clicks. But what if we could make it even worse? What if we could spin it worse? Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Because this one is how you spin it worse. 98% ditched it. That is not supported by the data.
Okay.
That is a hot steaming pile of horse manure.
Okay.
What are you And the sample size, 3,500, very small.
Yeah.
That's a small data set out of 1.8 million. It is often large enough to draw a valid inference.
Yeah. Depending of the mix of the data. If it's just a percentage of already like people who...
If it's already sufficiently randomized,
yeah,
we don't have any reason to believe that it is sufficiently randomized.
Yeah,
that
because then it wouldn't be as high as this. Yeah, probably.
Well, and the data doesn't support this conclusion. How did you get... First of all, the first article was a leap, and this is hot, wet trash. This is just terrible. I know how you get there. You get there because that's where the clicks are. And whatever it takes to get there. But let's just say it is 2%. 2% of 1.8 million. That's what, 9,000? No, 36,000 a month. 36,000 times $100. That's 3.6 million, right? Did I do it right? Or is it 36?
In the comments, please tell us.
36,300. So 3.6 million a month. At minimum, you've got 3.6 million a month in new revenue.
Yeah.
So that's, 40 plus million a year in new revenue.
Yeah.
40 million a year for nothing, for giving out a demo. And again, grossly underrepresented. Elon, of course, said, look, I don't like to respond to every last piece of bad news that you clowns put out, but 2% is not the correct number. So pretty frustrating.
Yeah, but maybe you can go now into why that is kind of. And I also have my example here that I brought for the audience as well and for you. And that's this example, because here, that's a German article, of course. I'm going to translate it for you guys. With this email, Musk fires, or let's go of workers, 3,000 people.
Now, 3,000, that's shocking because Germany has very strong labor protection laws, and 3,000 out of a factory that only employs what, 10,000?
Around, or the capacity.
10 to 12,000 is what I've heard. 3,000. This is very bad news.
Yeah, it is. It is actually...
this is shocking.
It's absolutely shocking. Yeah, if true. And that's the main point here, because if you really look into it, it was 300 workers. So they... sadly just
so they got 75% of the numbers right.
That's a good, actually good. And this is from Handelszeitung. This also was this number was published on Spiegel as well, and many times it was in like January of this year. And it's interesting to see that because it was 300 temporary workers at Tesla, and letting go of temporary workers in the car production industry or in any industry where there's mass production, that's pretty common actually to do, because that's why there are short-term workers or workers that have like not a contract with the company, just to swap them out a little bit.
Right.
That's also a system that the companies are a little bit protected by the labor laws we have, because when it would be too strict, then that's a problem for the business.
A lot of tech companies use this strategy in the US where they'll hire you through a temp agency where there's no ongoing expectation. And the idea is at the end of 6 months or 12 months, whatever it may be, if you're the good employee, they hire you. And if you're the okay or worse employee, they just cycle you out with someone else from the same agency. No hard feelings. Nobody was fired. It's just not a good fit for whatever reason. And this is a perfect example of that DNA we were talking about. One outlet publishes one number and everybody else scrambles to just repeat it.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is because if you look into it, VW, for example, let go in 2022 of 300 temp workers as well, 2 times in the year. So this is also interesting, but was that mentioned anywhere at that time? No, it wasn't. So that's interesting. Yeah.
It was mentioned, but it never went viral.
It never spread like that.
It didn't spread like that. And what that means is when it's my turn, I've got to sit down and write an article, what am I going to write? Am I going to write another unexciting, boring story that no one's going to read and my boss is going to complain about? And if I'm paid by the click, which a lot of writers are, I'm going to make $5, $10. Or am I going to flip the numbers and say the largest layoff since whatever date just happened? And you know what? Throw an extra 0 in, call it a mistake. And you see that. So my big thing on my channel that I do is I do not report single source rumors. Even if I know you personally, because I have met with people individually who have shared things. For example, the Lucid stories that I did back in June of last year, I had a source who was giving me some very salacious information, and I really wanted to run with it, but I couldn't because I've heard so many single source rumors, and the overwhelming majority proved to not be true. And then I found a second source who didn't know the first guy, who I was able to not interview, but stand near him having a conversation with with a mutual friend, and got a lot of information, and it all matched. So I was able to run it. And that meant I was 2-3 months ahead of everyone else who eventually covered the same story. And I have had people criticize me because when they said there were rumors that Tesla would start production in Texas on the compact, it was in the Jared Isaacman, the Walter Isaacson biography, but that was the only place it was reported. And then, and I said, I'm not going to report it until I get confirmation. And they said, well, here's 20 articles about it. Right, but they all cite, it's the same single source. And then when Elon confirmed it, and I think he confirmed it in a Sandy Munro interview, within 20 minutes, I posted it saying, okay, here's the confirmation we were waiting for. And I had people trying to tap dance on me like I'm the idiot. Do you want me to publish single source rumors? Because I can, but that would be garbage. And you don't want that. And I don't want that. And that's why
you have other news outlets to do that.
It's unfortunate because there's good money to be made in sensationalism. And if there's one thing I'm good at, it's not making good money. Yeah. So there's a lot of...
Me too. I'm a pro in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good at it. Yeah. I can...
But I can spend super...
I cannot make money all day. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. And I will point out the negative, like you said, the problems I had with FSD version 11. I made a video. I'll get people on X or Reddit or YouTube saying, you're just a Tesla fanboy. I said, I made a video called 5 Ways Tesla Sucks. And you can agree or disagree, but to pretend that I'm in the cult is dishonest. And if I was, I'm sure I'd be more successful. But I sleep well at night. I mean, I wake up every hour crying, but...
Because of the revenue.
Of course. The nightmares haunt me. But it's who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense also if you studied something or whatever. I mean, if you go up the university ladder, the scientific method is a thing to do, and you cannot cite just one single source. It's not possible to confirm anything, so you need to have multiple sources and also reliable sources. That's the next step. If you have 2, 4, or 5 sources and they are not as reliable, you cannot really do anything about it. It has to be published. Of course, these are mostly internal or very fresh information, so there is nothing confirmed so easily, especially when it's internals and you don't want to leak stuff from the company as well. That's also a small part. But what interests me the most in that is, of course, Tesla drives clicks, including maybe this video, I don't know. But it's interesting to see there's a whole revenue or market that those news outlets make money, of course, by clicks. So they need to make clicks as good as they can.
You can have an honest. There was a great video by, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember who it was. One of the bigger YouTubers, where he explained the anatomy of a good headline and title.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you want it to be interesting, but honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And much easier is to just do sensational garbage. Reuters used to be the gold standard in journalistic integrity.
That's true.
And then they added a paywall.
Mm-hmm.
And once they did, their business became chasing clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody is bigger on reporting single source rumors than Reuters.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones who confirmed Giga Mexico City, and they're going to fly cars out from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That author should have said, hold up, I need some verification. The editor should have never let that article run. It is pants on head ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it ran. This is our big news. And of course, it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So when Reuters publishes stuff, everyone's got their guard up now. Mm-hmm. And I've even had people tell me, no, Brian, Reuters is the gold standard. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer as much a wire as they are as a company themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they do lazy work. In terms of publishing leaks, I don't have as much of a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement with Tesla or anyone.
Mm-hmm.
If they asked me to, I would consider it based on what I would get in return. But I also don't get access.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, people have said, boy, if you're not careful with how you cover Tesla, they might not be good to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get into events. I don't get press releases. I don't know what I am missing.
Mm-hmm.
I waited 2 years before I published my first leak. And if they have a problem with it, they're welcome to have a conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing with these leaks to remember is we don't know which ones are true.
Yeah.
And no one has been blacklisted or unfollowed for publishing a rumor that turned out to be positive or untrue. Mm-hmm. It's only if it's negative and true. Mm-hmm. And we have no way of knowing which are which. Mm-hmm. There's no rapid response team. Most Fortune 500 companies have a rapid response team where they can get ahead of stories. Mm-hmm. And I'm not aware of one of those existing.
Yeah. I mean, we had also the situation where Sawyer was unfollowed by Elon Musk and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So there is a power dynamic there that's also in play a little bit, I think. And that's also something you could criticize, of course, also on the main platform on X, like where those information spread pretty fast. And that's a little bit dangerous, of course, if that's the main source. Of course, the main source is that when something's found out, and then you have this power struggle a little bit. But what I tend to see in the news, or did you want to comment on that?
Well, I would say that he also unfollowed whole Mars catalog for the same thing. And they didn't start the rumor. They just posted a screen capture of an article that had been published in the news.
Yeah.
And for Elon to unfollow is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because the other day...
Gives legitimization or not to the person.
It's money.
Yeah.
Because when the other day Elon retweeted something that Sawyer Merritt had posted, and we noticed it got 56 million views or something like that, which is thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue share. Mm-hmm. It is more money than I make in a month from that one retweet. Mm-hmm. And that sends a warning shot. That's a red flag to everybody else. Do you want to stay in the club or not? Mm-hmm. And it's tough because he controls that entire ecosystem. Mm-hmm. I'm not criticizing it. He has the right to unfollow anyone he wants. I believe he refollowed both of them afterward.
Yeah, he did.
But it's just like with the supercharger firings, it's about sending a message. Mm-hmm. And the message was sent.
Yeah.
But the message doesn't come to me because he's never retweeted anything I post. He's never interacted with me, and I don't expect him to.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine he will.
Yeah, what we also have to see on the other side that is also not, or in that sense, you have to consider this as well. You can think about it now that, okay, Elon suppresses information. Mm-hmm. That's a way to spin it. Or you could spin it, Tesla got attacked furiously over 15 years or since inception, kind of. And it was worse and worse. It got worse and worse over the years.
Absolutely.
And especially when Elon kind of went political as well, then it also kind of fell apart a little bit more. And there are forces at play that don't like EVs. That's what I wanted to touch on now, because also these systems or these things happening in the US are separate from what is happening in Europe, but we also see headlines that are overblown here in Europe. And what's let's say, the common ground? We have a huge car lobby in Europe, in Germany especially, that is not in favor of electrification, actually, if it's not from the German producers, of course.
Right.
So when the EU Commission now announced that they ratified the law that in 2035 you cannot register an internal combustion engine car anymore, that's a thorn in the eye, like we should say, to the car lobby, of course, because they want to sell as many internal combustion engine cars as they can, even if they are hybrids, because their expertise lays in the internal combustion engine that they perfected over 120 years. And that's the main thing. We don't produce batteries in Europe for now, not enough.
Not enough. There are some, I think.
Of course. We have electric motors, of course. There is engineering here for that, but not this kind of expertise for mass production. I mean, specialized engines for racing cars or something. Yeah, we have.
And it's new.
Yeah.
And it's new. It's not, as opposed to the automotive legacy in Europe, which is as old as anywhere.
Yeah.
As established.
Yeah, and you have to think about all the R&D that went into the internal combustion engine as well. I mean, years and years of development and perfection and efficiency improvements and speed improvements. And now, through the laws we already seen, like VW doing their stuff.
The companies that spent 8 decades perfecting something had an advantage.
Yeah.
Now they've spent 1 decade trying to perfect something, and they know that any advantage they have could be unseated in a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Or less, because the second mover has the advantage of not having to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the oil lobby that has it in for Tesla. It's also the power companies, the utilities.
Yes.
It's also the oil companies. So the oil companies, the manufacturers, the energy companies, and now it's going to go further. It's the labor unions. It's anyone who would be impacted by the largest profession in the U.S., driving. It is anyone who would be at risk from anything the bot could do, which looks like it could be anything. The only industries that Tesla isn't, that Elon's companies are not upsetting is banking and pharmacy. That's it. Pharmaceuticals are safe. Banking for now is safe. And all these companies are combined. If you can knock one of them down or boost one of them up, it hits all of them. When the first crewed Dragon mission went to the space station, it was all over the news. And people were excited, and they drove in white Model X's out to the launch pad. And there was a search trend spike for invest in SpaceX. And you can't. But Tesla jumped the next day because it's the next best thing. It's all the same guy. It's the same umbrella. So anyone who can attack any of them does well in doing so. If I can attack the boring company, that indirectly hurts Tesla. And this is universally true of Elon's companies. The more scientifically literate the fans of the company are, the less effective it is. So if you look at SpaceX headlines, they are not negative. They're almost universally positive, because when you try and sling poo at the wall, it doesn't stick. The people who read SpaceX news are not going to fall for that. Neuralink gets some bad press because the people who because there isn't a group of neuroscientists out there like there are space enthusiasts. And, further down it goes. But with Tesla, everyone thinks they know cars, and everyone has an opinion about cars, and everyone's ridden in a car. So it's easier to make the bad news stick.
And also, everyone has their experience with the car. And now I'm talking a little bit about people that were affected by the great improvements in internal combustion technology that are wanting to hate the EV as well, because they say, oh, the range is bad. Yeah, it's always like the early adopters, the early product categories are always not on par with the thing it wants to be replaced. We had like this kind of shift in camera technology as well. I mean, I'm from video production and from designing and media design, communication design. And I mean, I'm 34. I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and the camera gear kept getting better and better now that the sensors have such a high fidelity that they can replace film since decades. It's easy to do. But at first, yeah, there was a period like 5 years that was horrible to switch over to the electric sensor instead of film. And we all know Kodak had its moments. Yeah, they had their own Kodak moment, which is also a German company or German-based company, Kodak actually. But yeah, they closed shop because they lost against the smartphone then, because in that small niche, the digital processor went better and better. And with the smartphone, those electronic technology for sensors went down and also batteries and stuff. So this improved the camera segment immensely as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Times are shifting.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out here is that when the technology shifts are happening, there are always people who are established or familiar with the product, and they say, no, I don't want to change. I want to, but they don't even want to test ride. When they do, they want to hate it. And because I tested that with the father of my wife, actually, it was pretty interesting. I let him drive the Tesla Model 3. He was like, okay, yeah. So, the blinkers, where's the stocks? Where are the stocks? And stuff like this. So he picked some stuff that he wanted to dislike, and I said, okay, this is the charging rate. I wait around 30 minutes until it's charged fully while I go into the store to pick up groceries, and then I'm back and my car's charged up, and he's like, and then you could see like kind of, okay, my argument kind of shrinks and shrinks the more he experienced it. But he wanted not to like it, like, oh no, I don't like the haptic, I need a sound. And yeah, there are some things that he's used to that he likes. That's preference, that's okay, but yeah.
What I would say to that is I've seen people, there was a post on X the other day. Robert Llewellyn from Fully Charged said, we've got our Electrify Everything, or whatever the name of the event is, coming on up north. Which car are you most excited to test drive first? And one person responded, anything except Tesla, I won't drive one. And you want to buy an electric car, you're out here to do some test drives, and you're going to just sit in the dark on the best-selling brand in the world because mental illness, I assume. I mean, it's great that you're broadcasting it, but maybe don't. So there are people like that. My brother is an electrician who despises electric cars. He's got a lot of mistaken understandings of what the technology is and does. And I've been trying to get him behind the wheel for 6 months. But then again, I've been trying to get him to come out and do my electrical for 4 years. So I've given up on that. I've had other people pecking away at it. I've gotten most of it done. So when he does eventually ever show up, if he shows up, it's only the really hard stuff left to do, bud. So.
Yeah, there's a strange thing there. And I also think that in Germany, for example, the way that the news are spun here is, if you think about it, who pays the most ad spending on news channels? Car manufacturers. Also in the US, they have sponsored articles.
Yes.
That's a thing where they tag it, it's a sponsored article. Okay. And I know I'm from marketing. I work for a huge European fashion brand as my day job and in the marketing department. And let me tell you, if we don't buy exclusive paid advertorials or stuff like this, do you think they really will test our clothes or mix our clothes together with when they develop looks as a goodie? Because we paid already.
Right, because we're friends.
Yes, exactly. And that's how it works. And
in cars, there's another thing they like to do, which is all expense paid trips. I've never had one of these. I'm familiar with them, but I haven't been invited to one. I haven't asked for one.
So please reach out to Brian to do
Please
that.
reach out. When VinFast was ready to do their unveiling, they flew all the influencers they could find to LA, put them on a private jet to Vietnam, a chartered jet to Vietnam for an all expenses 1 week vacation. Everything's on us. And then they would get 20 minutes with the car out of a week.
20 controlled minutes.
On a runway.
Oh, great.
So it's not even a real environment. It is very controlled. And all of those reviews came back very positive. And then the people who said no to this, people like Kyle Connor from Out of Spec, he found one at a show and where they were allowing test drives. And he's like, great, let me do a test drive. And he drove it around for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was. And he was like, this is a chunk of garbage. I don't know why it's getting such good reviews. Yes, you do. So that is part of it too, those people feel a sense of obligation and gratitude. So that comes back. But to the question, the direct question, is it because they don't spend money that they get negative headlines? My answer to that is no. So in December, November, December, I started doing a daily tracking of all headlines related to Tesla and other brands. And I only made a few of them public. I did most of them on Patreon and X and YouTube for members only, because it's a little dry and it would have watered down the channel. It would have become the whole channel's identity. And it wasn't about that. It was about spotting trends. So I would compare the Tesla headlines against BYD, GM, Ford, SpaceX, Boring Company, and others, and lithium as a topic, and all the. So I had a pretty good picture, and I did it daily for probably 2 months. And what I saw was nobody gets headlines as negative as Tesla, except GM is a close second.
Oh, okay.
GM, who spends billions a year on advertising, who has almost the exact same advertising budget as Ford, gets way worse headlines than Ford. Yeah. Ford gets vastly better headlines. Why?
Yeah.
It's not because they spend more money on advertising. It just is. And I can't explain that. Now, who do you think had the best headlines? BYD. BYD had the best because the news always originates from favorable sources and is trickled out from there. There's not a lot of firsthand accounts from English-speaking journalists of driving or owning a BYD. So it makes it pretty challenging to get real news. SpaceX also got very strong news. And there was no correlation between ad spend and favorable coverage. And this was a surprise to me. I expected Ford and GM to be about equal on the chart, and they were not. And I thought that was a little weird, but that's what it was.
Yeah, maybe Ford is considered as more American than Tesla. I don't know.
Oh, people definitely think of it as much more American than Tesla.
Besides, the production is in Mexico. Most of the production is,
And the Fords that are made in the U.S. are not the most American-made cars. If you look at the top 10 most American-made cars, as of the last report, it was 4 Teslas, 2 or 3 Honda/Acuras, and 2 Volkswagens. And that was the top. Oh, there might have been, I think it was 2 Hondas, an Acura, 2 Volkswagens, but Ford, GM, and Stellantis are not on that list.
That's pretty interesting to see. I mean, crazy how this news cycles work and how Tesla is always in a bad spot there. And I mean, for Germany, it's clear to me where it comes from. I say that it's the car lobby a little bit, and also preaching to the choir, because we have a huge population that kind of despises EVs just because they don't like to be regulated. Also conservative types here in Germany that
don't ram it down my throat.
Yeah,
I want the choice.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it makes sense. I know where they are coming from, but it doesn't help if they don't look into it exactly. And most of the times it's just misinformation, or they're not as informed about EVs, or didn't experience an EV before, or are not as tech or app savvy, I would say. That's also a huge factor. I mean, fine.
There are people who don't like voice commands,
Yeah.
and the voice command can do just about anything you want it to do. I would say, stepping back a second, one reason I may not have been invited to those events, not Tesla's, but every event, is because I'm not for sale. I already give good reviews to cars, companies with whom I have no relationship, and I already give bad reviews to companies too. It's about the product. Now, if you want me to, I think the benefit to getting someone like me in would be, you can have your engineer sit down with me and explain why my concerns. That doesn't mean I'm going to believe everything your engineer says, because I've talked to some engineers who are clearly in the job of PR and not of engineering. And there are a lot of things like that. So it would be, bringing me in wouldn't automatically get you good coverage. If Tesla said, we'd like you to sign an NDA, I would say, we want you to not publish leaks. I would say, why? What is it and why? Because you can't just blanket ask me to like you. That's not how anything works. I've seen channels that were pretty clearly sponsored by someone and that they weren't disclosed. And we can talk about that off air because I'm not going to try and get in trouble. But I'm sure you've seen them as well, where you're like, boy, that person sure is a big fan of this car until exactly 12 months later.
And then it's another.
And then all of a sudden it's something else. And that's very frustrating. And by the way, also, I did want to say on the single source rumor thing, I've seen people say, I went into the Tesla service center and here's what I learned. Don't listen to those guys. They know less than us. They are not being given. When I was at a recent event at a Tesla service center, the gentleman said, by the way, an interesting thing you may not know about the Cybertruck is that each section uses a different alloy of stainless steel. And I turned to Patrick from the Tesla Life and I said, well, that's not true.
No.
And he's like, I go, never listen to these guys. They don't, every section. Well, yeah, because there's different hardness required. Buddy, you'd see it. It's not.
No.
It'd be more complicated. We're trying to simplify. What are you talking about?
So I think what's also interesting about this topic is to get into, is it also politics involved there? Because here it's also about, in Germany, for example, it's also about elections soon. So the conservative or the right-leaning, also the right-leaning parties that we have here is also kind of against EVs because this is a green agenda and we have a green party in power right now. So they oppose each other. So they have to kind of disagree. And they preach, of course, to their choir as well, because then there are people who are like EV critics or people working in the oil industry, or not oil industry, but in the car industry that are just not
entrenched interests who are already politically connected.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have that too. How do you see that?
I see a lot of claims that the reason Tesla gets bad press is because the government hates them. And I hasten to point out that these publications are not government run. I had a disagreement with someone I respect very highly, who is in a group with me, who was saying, no, this is absolutely a government run thing. This publication, this very large, very well understood and recognized publication has it in for them because they're a government puppet. And I said, okay, but if I look up articles about how this publication just go to their website and type in the name of the current president, and you'll find that if the government was controlling him, these are not the stories they would print. Come on. You see any North Korean newspapers talking about how fat their president is or what his kids or spouse or whatever is up to? No, that's not what it is. Well, yes, but these are still, it's still a political hit job. Guys, if the government, if certain members of the government don't like Elon, his politics, his company, maybe they don't like his labor practice, whatever it may be, that doesn't affect the media. If a politician can control the media, the first thing they'll do is spend all of that capital on themselves, not on attacking someone else, but on themselves. So I haven't been able to draw any political lines and be, well, the politicians control the media. Which media? Because the media is very diverse, and there are media that attack one political party or the other or both or a third one. So which politics? I haven't been able to draw that connection. And I understand that when viewed through a tribal lens, everything looks tribal, but I don't care about perception. I care about data that I can verify, which is why I spent months, 2 months at least, daily tracking all these headlines. And it was very exhausting. But I did it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then you stopped also tracking news.
I stopped because my whole objective was to stop the battle against fake news. And then I saw Elon himself on X boosting fake news, boosting things that were not true, that he knew, that he had to know were not true. And I don't remember what they are now, but I was very frustrated. And I thought, I'm spending hours a day defending Tesla against these ridiculous attacks. And then he turns around and is doing the attacks himself on others. And I thought, of all the people to understand what it's like to be treated unfairly by someone with a big megaphone, surely you're the guy who knows. But then you turn around and do it to others. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I spending so much time?
But what I would add here, because you said he surely must have known that this is fake news or not. That's something you cannot verify like this. I would say so. That's what I would disagree there.
It is possible
because it's possible that he's just doing skimming through something, reading a headline, replying in 5 seconds, and goes off to his day.
Sure, and and I can't speak to that part. I can't know what other people know, but I can tell you that he's doing the thing that he's accusing others of, which is repeating bad news without finding out if it's true or without caring if it's true. And I set out to make a point, and the point was that Tesla is treated unfairly in the media, and to quantify it, and I did that. I got all that accomplished, and I could see the trends with other car companies not
of course,
getting...
you had your section, you had your conclusion out of that already, so you could also stop it. It makes sense.
And you could see the data. And it's not all things Elon, because SpaceX did well.
Yeah, of course.
But it's most things Elon, and no other company or topic I covered. Nothing got the negative press that Tesla did. And it's because there's money in it. It's not a conspiracy.
No.
I've seen a lot of people say the editors are telling them, write this bad story. No, the editors are saying, we need clicks. What gets
you
clicks?
Have 1 day to publish this.
You got 3 hours, man. I need 3 articles from you today. There was a time when positive Tesla stories sold the best. And that's what all you got all day. And then the tide turned. If you're going to make any political statement, you're going to create enemies. It doesn't matter if it can be something as gentle as, I think kids should have education. What do you say? Well, almost everyone will agree. Some will not. Some will say, well, who's paying for it? What kind of education? Are you indoctrinating them? Why can't I educate? It was the simplest, kindest statement, and you will make enemies if it is political. Which is why I limit my politics to not even talking about pineapple on pizza.
Oh, no, you don't. I don't want to know, Brian, because I need to be a little bit, I have to host you still. So be careful what you say now.
That's true. I will say that I live on the West Coast.
Oh, we all know what that means.
We all know what that means, those left coast people with their pineapple on pizzas. Just means I either am a monster or know some. But which is which? So, and he does have strong political opinions. Some of them are hot button issues. And especially with hot button issues, you can plan on 50% of people not agreeing. And of that 50%, you can expect that, 1 to 2, maybe 3% are radical people who will take it personally and dedicate their whole existence to trying to take you down a peg. And I respect your right to have your beliefs. If I agree with them, if I don't agree with them, But we have to understand that there are people who will take it personally and make it their mission to oppose you and your pineapple on pizza ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I also think it's a difficult topic to get into because also, yeah, in the German space, kind of, it's interesting to see that we have this. Elon Musk stands for an enemy, or has a target on his back, just by checking a lot of boxes that some people despise. For example, the people who are protesting in Grünheide right now. He's the perfect enemy. He's a billionaire who uses natural resources of some kind. His companies produce something out of resources. How dare they?
He gets my government money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait a minute. Does he?
Really?
Because first of all, you guys have been sitting in the woods for 3 weeks. I don't think you're paying tax.
Yeah. Hey, they are. That's their unemployment money we're talking about here. That is also spent by the government. So if they
right, it's the same money.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if Elon personally slapped me in the face, I would still defend the people against the people who say he's a tax cheat. He's a welfare mooch. He's gotten billions from the government for services rendered. The launch services cost 30 to 70% less than anyone in history.
Yeah.
And we've got the most reliable rocket system. I saw someone recently say they should just cancel SpaceX contracts. And I said, there's no one else in the world who could fill those shoes today. There is what you just plan on 80% fewer launches is what you'd have to do because the United Launch Alliance with their giant SLS rocket, they've only contracted to make a fixed number. And when that last launch goes, they're done because they don't recover them. Meanwhile, SpaceX just had a 21st launch and landing of a single booster. That's 20 entire rockets they didn't have to build. I mean, it'll be 21 when they launch it again, but you know what I mean? It's 20 rockets they didn't have to build. Think of the resources saved. For that matter, think of how much carbon has been taken out of the air by Tesla doing what they do. There are so many net goods here. And if you want to get mad because he thinks society doesn't value having children enough, great. Weird hill to die on, but okay. I clearly don't let politics be my identity because it consumes too much headspace and I don't got time for that.
Yeah, and also what's very important is that the algorithms online are made so you get catered to what you respond to, not what you like, what you respond to. They want to have engagement. So if you're triggered by negative news or the opposing view, then it's shown to you because then you will comment, even if it's a rage comment.
Right.
If it's rage, it's not about good or bad emotions here. It's about triggering a reaction. So you click so they can say, look at that, usage is up. And then they earn their money. And you are in the filter bubble. That's also an important thing. We live in a time where now people live in separate realities, actually, like because they have different news, different sources are catered to them if they don't search for them, and the algorithms keep on, making it worse and worse to kind of find your information because the algorithm kind of drags you always again into the feed. Like the feed, the suggestions to the suggestion page. And then this is your eco-universe kind of where you're at. And that's why the opposing views get stronger and stronger and the skewing gets stronger and stronger.
Everyone I know believes this.
Yeah.
Really? Because everyone I know believes this.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, oh, we are different. And then people separate more and more. And I think that's a huge thing.
Well, I just think you're lying because my reality doesn't have those voices.
Yeah, and that's very important. So I think people, individuals, aren't as two-dimensional like the algorithm wants them to be. So I think it's very important to step a little bit away, be more civil in discussion. That's very important. I think that's missing. And also, for example, Elon might post stuff that you oppose or I oppose or I I would say, God, come on, research that more, a little bit, at least a little bit. Isn't he one of the greatest inventors of our time? I mean, that's also
Some
true.
people,
so reality is multi-layered. It's not as simple as, oh, he's an evil billionaire that should be taxed, like Elizabeth Warren. She did this attack on him to, I mean, seriously.
It was cynical.
Yeah.
Because it was not only, so I get it. Let's tax the billionaires. Great. I agree. Yeah. He agrees. Everyone agrees. That's not the question.
But don't use him as an example
Right. You picked the wrong one, and you spent money to purchase ads on Facebook to promote that story to raise money for your campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's layers of cynical. You're paying a different billionaire. Why are you not giving criticism to Mark Zuckerberg when, I mean, is he a saint? I mean, is he a lizard? I don't know the answer to any of those questions.
Depending on the bubble you're in.
Depending on the bubble you're I mean, even his fans know he's a lizard, but that's different. But yeah, he's got a new update that makes him look a little bit more human.
That's good, yeah.
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's almost lifelike. It's almost believable. A few more generations. But it was all to raise funds for her campaign.
Yeah.
That's not a noble pursuit. And it's, Elon's a package deal. Remove him as the CEO because, his behavior.
Yeah.
Right. But his execution is what we're looking at. And I'm sure you have to look at who your allies are to understand the whole story. And if you see, for example, there was a short-lived political movement in the U.S. where people were saying Cascadia should secede from the Union, take all the left coast liberals and break off into their own country or become part of Canada. And a buddy of mine said, this is a very attractive idea. And so he dug into the funding and found out it was a Russian campaign to divide Americans. And he said, I'm out. I'm out. I don't care how good the idea is. If you're trying to divide my country, you are my enemy. I can't support it. And you have to look at it. My advice on the fake news front is no matter what the story is, zoom out and look for the context. Obviously, look for what's real first. The second thing is, if a news source only gives you bad information or good information, good stories or bad stories, I mean, the information needs to be honest, but if it's all negative or all positive, can you trust them? If every single story is Tesla good, how will you know? That's great because today Tesla good. But if tomorrow there's something wrong, and are they going to report it? Are they going to tell you? As silly and absurd as Holmar's catalog can be at times, and he's over the top, absolutely. He's a troll, a masterclass in trolling, but he is still capable of criticizing Tesla.
Yeah.
When he says version 11 was perfect, I believe him for where he lived. It's not my experience. That made it so that when 12 came out and he said it's perfecter, I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I've seen it. It's very good. It
is perfect.
It is breathtaking. But on the flip side of that, you look at some of these TeslaQ accounts and there is no good in the company. If you can't tell me when one thing is good, what are we doing here? I can tell you ways I've criticized it. You know them, some of them, there are more. But it's about being honest. Yeah. My news is overwhelmingly positive because I believe the company is doing overwhelmingly positive things. Are they perfect? No. Do they have the quickest off the line 0 to 60? Nope. There's 1 or 2 faster. Do they have the only category where I'd say they win hands down is safety.
Yep.
And autonomy. I haven't seen another autonomous system that beats what they have, but it is an overwhelmingly positive company. And I'm overwhelmingly positive about it. And the fact that Elon doesn't follow me on Twitter doesn't hurt my feelings, doesn't affect me. It'd be nice if he did so that when there's an event, I could DM him in hopes that he would get me a ticket. But he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
GM also doesn't respond to my requests. I went to their booth at the Detroit Auto Show on Media Day and said, who can I talk to? And they said, the media team has already gone home for the day. It was 3 p.m.
Okay.
They're open until 7.
Okay.
And they've gone.
Yeah.
Give me your email address. We will get in touch with you. They have not.
Yeah.
I've emailed them again. They have not.
Okay.
And that's fine. I still acknowledge that the Silverado has the longest range.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up for debate. It's not my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It has the longest range.
Mm-hmm.
So it also has a battery that is the size of a city block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if that's one way to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So my objective is to be honest. My objective is to be fair. My desire is for others to be able to zoom out and see the methods that we use to come to the conclusions that we do, and to not get blinded by what we want to be true.
And also where we are coming from, kind of. And for me, that's why I always take this with a grain of salt. I always say that, or this is not an advice, or I did not verify that source. That's important to say, because then when I have, so just separate your own opinion, your thoughts on something, and facts from one another. And I try to do that, and try to do that more, because I struggled sometimes to do it before. Like sometimes I would like, oh yeah, and I just say it, and yeah, that's how I work. But also that I'm more on the emotional side, from the design space, should tell you something. I'm not an engineer, so I see more nuances than just the facts, kind of the emotional side as well. So, or how to generate feelings in the other person who looks at this. So I'm in branding as well. So that's something I do, and I have skill in. But that's something you have to acknowledge, because this means, am I the one to pixel peep into numbers? No, please don't, because I will get it wrong most of the time, because I won't sit there and go through all the spreadsheets 5,000 times.
Right.
I'm not that guy. You can watch, for example, Brian for that sense and stuff like this. So I think that's pretty important to disclose stuff like this, yeah.
One measure of a car's quality that I shared with a friend 15, 20 years ago was, how long after you bought the car did you discover a new feature that you didn't know you always had? Mm-hmm. And for me, it was I had a Lexus, and the windows were down, and I just reached in to unlock it, and the alarm went off. And I was like, of course it did. Perfect. But I've never had a car like this, where not only are new features still being added, but you've had your car for 6 months. Yeah. I've had mine for 8, 9 months. Mm-hmm. And this week, you and I shared with each other new things that we didn't know the car could do. Mm-hmm. And that is ridiculous. That is so cool. And it's not because we weren't able to do them. It's that there's shortcuts to do them better, or just little. It's not because it's overly complicated. It's because it's overly clever. Mm-hmm. It's not our shortcoming. Yeah. I mean, it's not the car's shortcoming. It's not even a shortcoming. Mm-hmm. It's doing things we didn't know it could do. Yeah. And that'll be a good video too. We should try and find all the little things people may not realize that the car can do.
That's true. But I might publish my goddamn review that I did of the car in March. Funny. Yeah, I'm over that, but I have to publish it still. So I will do eventually. Maybe you can drag me to the PC and edit that.
I had a number of FSD videos I made that I considered publishing, but they were so uneventful. Why? Mm-hmm. And then I get pull up the footage, and it's like, this is too much work for a video that I hope no one watches, because it's uneventful. It just worked. Mm-hmm. It just worked.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting. You have to know where your sources come from, where you get your information from. You have to be careful what the actual sources are. If you have to verify your stuff, and yeah, if you want to talk to me, for example, about interface design and the interior design of the software, what Tesla did, then I'm an expert on that field. But in different fields, I'm not as an expert. For example, production numbers, that's why I consult you. I want to talk to people that know better, so my audience doesn't get baloney served in their plate. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of your videos because you draw in a good variety of experts, and you let them work within their fields.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's a good way to do it. There are too many people who decide that they're the expert on everything. Mm-hmm. And there are people we've seen on X and YouTube who love to get outside So I'd get outside my comfort zone. You get outside your area of core competency.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not saying that everyone, that I guess my biggest objective is I can't expect everyone to dedicate the kind of time that we do to understanding which news is real and which news is not. But the two things I would say is don't make a conspiracy when there isn't one.
Yeah.
And accept bad news when you trust the person.
Mm-hmm.
If, don't be mad at don't kill the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Don't kill the messenger. And too many times I've had people say, you were too negative about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unfollowing, unsubscribing, no longer going to donate, whatever. That's what I do. I have to share the reality.
And unbiasedness is,
Yeah. I know it's financially not my best decision, but I've made worse financial decisions.
Yeah, and what's funny is also, I want to point that out, many people from the US actually said, who is behind the protests at Giga Berlin?
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And what's your answer?
Yeah, my answer is, because many said, oh, it's the oil industry. It's them. Is VW behind that? Could that be? They asked me directly. And I'm like, do you think that in Germany, when VW did something like this wouldn't come out somehow? And if it does, would that be good press for VW? No, you demolish trust. Is the whole car lobby maybe in favor of that this happens to a foreign company that is actually a threat to them in their own home turf? Of course they like that, but will they push for that? They don't have to sometimes because there are mutual interests at play here. For example, the left-leaning protesters that are camping in the forest are actually no eco-protesters, in my opinion. They say they are, they write it onto their little signs, and they say water consumption, and don't check the facts and numbers that asparagus farms in the region use more water than Tesla, or maybe protest the giant lignite mine that is also taking from the groundwater of Giga Grünheide to an extent that it's ridiculous, 100 times more than Tesla did before, and now they recycle the water. So they're just misinformed, and actually they are anti-capitalists. Yeah, anti-capitalist and anarchist. They despise the system that funds them indirectly or directly, actually, because they get unemployment money, for example, or a very, very nice student loan that is heavily subsidized, where they just have to pay 50% of the student loan back. How about that? And they get, it's ridiculous. I use that as well. That's a great incentive, but still, they criticize the system that nurtures them at the same time. And that's so ridiculous. And it's about Elon Musk, the big bad billionaire, coming into our home turf and doing that. Oh, you could also think about it as Tesla is the most eco-friendly company, one of the most here in Europe, because they produce electric cars. And now we have a hub of electric car production in Germany that's way better than VW, because our local companies don't want to switch, actually, because it's expensive. Now they have to and they dance at multiple parties, you could say, to bet on the winning horse. But that's the reality behind that. So, yeah.
I love it. And the reality is, when Tesla went to China, China said, we really want you here. We believe that if you come here, our electrification movement will take a big step forward. And I feel that may have been part of the discussion in Berlin as well. Mm-hmm. If Tesla comes here and does what they've already done in China, we will be step number 2 on the ladder. We will be the next electrification hub. And if you look at the brands, the other day on a video on my channel, we went through some of the brands, and there were a lot of German cars. Audi, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, all the big brands represented.
Yeah, exactly.
But including Schmert.
Yeah, Smart as well. Yes, the Smart car. So, Brian, thank you very much for being on. I think it's an important discussion to do. Also, check your sources, do some research yourself a little bit. Not too much. It's okay. Nobody can deep dive as much as some weird Tesla nerds that always defend Elon or something. It's interesting to see that unfolding here. But I would say, check your sources. Check out Brian here from my Tesla. Future Raza. Sorry, I still have it in
I have said it in a couple of intros before, and I get a message from my editor, and Rosh says, Brian, you said my Tesla weekend again. It's okay, I'll paste it from the other one.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah. But since you are here, I have something for you for the end of the episode. That's a special. That's right. I didn't announce it in the beginning because you brought me snacks from the US and let me test them on his channel. So go check it out on his channel. But I brought also something. Is this? We have Duplo, which is a very famous sweet here.
Duplo. Okay. So we've got a picture of a wafer and looks like chocolate and hazelnut. Keep it in my same plane of focus.
Yeah. So it's a hazelnut stick with chocolate with
so hazelnut chocolate makes me think of Nutella.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was not something you could really get in America until probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You could find it in some specialty shops. Oh.
Yeah, so it looks like a tree a little bit. So
it smells like Easter candy.
Okay. And then you can tell me what it's comparable to.
A Twix without the caramel.
Mm-hmm.
Except that the chocolate is so much better. This chocolate is so good. American chocolate is...
Yeah, I know why. Because they use different, especially Hershey's, has this unique taste. Because they used to, or still use, kind of milk that went sour a little bit. Yep. I've looked that up. Maybe you can fact check that and mention that in the comments below.
That's wonderful.
And also that one, that's a Hanuta. That's also very famous here.
Never heard of Hanuta?
Hanuta, yeah, that's also very famous. So it has
So that's an interesting one. Again, wafers. Looks like hazelnut.
A lot of hazelnut with Ferrero, the
See,
brand.
it's cheating because when I brought the foods for you, I brought the silliest, dumbest.
Yeah. And that's
But these are like quality. These, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, Twinkies are very famous. Yeah.
I did make him eat Twinkies.
Yeah.
And, by the way, it's time for your insulin.
Oh, God, yeah. Since I tasted the sweets from the US, I got a huge insulin spike.
So this just smells like chocolate?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like hazelnut filling there. It's very minimalistic and simple. Yeah.
Again, the chocolate is just European chocolate.
It's probably actually chocolate.
For one thing, is chocolate. Instead of wax.
Yeah. Don't eat too much.
That's wonderful.
Many more.
Okay. Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Great.
So this one is also very famous. That's Kinder Bueno. Yeah. So that's a Kinder Bueno. It's called. So a lot of things from
which
not sponsored.
Which in 2 languages means good kid.
Kinder Bueno. Yeah.
It means it's a German. It's a German child who is good in Spanish.
Yeah, bueno, Kinder Bueno,
Okay. Oh, that's nice. So it's got like a chocolate kind of ribbing on it, like a little drizzle.
Yeah.
Whoa, that is so light and juicy. Oh, that's like drinking crunchy chocolate milk. Doesn't sound good when I say it that way.
Yeah. Dried up.
That is so rich.
Yeah, that's also very nice. And I got something else for you. That's this one. This is a Schokobon, also from Kinder. That's really much one of the famous brands here that used.
Yeah.
That's a chocolate egg, just.
Chocolate egg? It is absolutely a chocolate egg.
So you know the Kinder Surprise egg, so the same company behind that is behind this as well. We get the original Kinder Surprise egg with the toy inside because that's prohibited in the US. Because they don't want to get sued. Let's see, and it's a law that
it's just a law. Yeah, it's a law that
kids don't eat
that any human doesn't.
Yeah,
and it's one
never
of those,
happened here, but okay, yeah,
right. But it's not about the Kinder egg. It's a much older law.
Yeah, okay,
but. It's like how you can't have certain preservatives in the food because...
Oh, just for example, like a toy in cereal, but directly in the cereal box, I could see that this would be a problem, so this would make sense. And I think this was also the case before.
Maybe, because in the US, the toys have to be in the box outside the bag, and they used to be in the bag.
Yeah. So how do you rate this?
It's very rich, But compared to these are like borderline magical, and this is great.
Okay,
It's merely great.
So I have another one. Sorry that I let you eat everything at once, but this is a specialty because it's actually an Oreo branded thing. So it has Oreo.
Okay.
But is it comparable to anything from Oreo? Because it's a, it's a milk snack kind of.
I've never heard of it.
And
So we've got
I think it's loosely related to Oreo. It has some Oreo chunks in there.
fresh milk snack.
Yeah.
I saw the weirdest flavor of Oreo. I don't know if they do this here, but in America they come up with infinite flavors of Oreo because they're crazy people. There was a College Humor sketch about it. But one of the flavors I saw was cookies and cream. Isn't
that the Oreo? The whole Oreo?
Did you put more Oreos in it?
Yeah.
What if we flavored it like Oreo? Damn it, Jenkins, you're a genius.
Did that, but yeah.
Okay.
So let's see.
This is interesting. Ooh.
It's not chocolate, it's just black stuff. Whoever. Yeah. I think this tastes a little bit you would expect from a UDSSR snack. I would say a little bit. It
is bitter like an Oreo.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. I like it, but
yeah, it's kind of weird, yeah. Does it this tastes more like paint thinner again a little bit.
This tastes way more like an American treat.
Okay, and then
Lord.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the last thing. And then we're done. This is very famous. This is Spezi, actually. This is from South Germany more. So this is Coke mixed with Fanta, actually. So we have different brands that does that. Not only and this one's really famous brand here in South Germany as well. It's actually from a brewery. That's how they get their your kids hooked to alcohol before you can drink alcohol here. Because in Germany,
can I have the bottle cap?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because in Germany, here you can show that to the camera as well. Because in Germany we, kids at the age of 16 can drink beer here in Germany. So we have loose laws for.
What age? 16?
16, yeah.
When I have visited Germany in the 90s, that was not enforced.
Yeah.
No.
And
it wasn't a problem.
Yeah. It's like water. But yeah, it's Coke mixed with Fanta.
Just smells. I'm facing away from all the cameras.
Yeah.
I'm hiding.
Could you walk out of and review it there? Yeah. How about that?
Were we supposed to record any of this? It smells like any pop.
Yeah. Just a fizzy drink, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it tastes like Coke with Fanta.
Yeah.
When you said mixed with Fanta, I was like, oh no, that's the name of your cat. And I was deeply concerned.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm glad we got that sorted.
Yeah. So, okay. But how do you think this is? Like, it's is that could people please try it in the US as well? If you have Fanta and Coke, just mix them together and drink it. I think it's then you have the South German experience kind of, because you can order it here but not in the north. When you say can I have the Spezi, they're like, what? Kind of. Yeah.
And in the South of America, if you say, "Can I get a Coke?" they go, "What kind?" You go, "Orange," and they bring you a Fanta. Because there are still parts of the South where a Coke means any fizzy drink.
Oh, okay.
It's fading, but it's still there.
Yeah,
and if you go to somewhere with a Coke freestyle machine, you can just get an orange Coke.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring. Thank you very much, Brian.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and destroy the rest of these as soon as the camera's off.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll pretend that it's part of my diet, part of a balanced breakfast.
Okay, perfect. Follow Brian. Thank you very much for joining me here today. And there's only one last thing to say finally on this long episode, and that's to say goodbye, everybody.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to TeslaFix. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.